你好, welcome to Ask Andy. In this video, our topic is Chinese language. I'm going to answer 3 questions about Chinese language. Question number 1. Chinese or Mandarin? 中文, Hanyu, Pǔtōnghuà, or Guóyǔ. So in English, we can talk about Chinese language as Chinese or Mandarin. What about that in Chinese? So in Chinese, we can say 中文, Hanyu, Pǔtōnghuà, or Guóyǔ about Chinese language. So it's even more complicated, right? We have 4 different terms. So what's the difference between them? And which one is the best one for you to use as a Chinese learner? I'm going to let you know that in this video. Question number 2. Is Chinese difficult to learn? Actually, we don't have a language which is easy to learn, right? So I'm going to compare Chinese language to English language and let you know if Chinese language is difficult to learn compared to English, relatively speaking. Question number 3. Chinese characters, simplified or traditional? So for Chinese characters, we have simplified version and traditional version. Which one is better for you to learn? I'm going to analyze it and you can choose by yourself. Let's get started. Question number 1. Chinese or Mandarin? So we have 4 different terms for Chinese language. One is 中文, number 2 is 汉语, number 3 is 普通话, and number 4, 国语. What's the difference between them, and which one is the best one for you to use? I'm going to analyze it one by one. So number 1, 中文. What is 中文? Let's see. So if you have known China is 中国, it's easy for you to understand what 中文 is. So 中 is from 中国, and 文 is written language. So literal translation for 中文 is China written language. So it is Chinese language. So this one actually is good for you to use because you are learning the language in China. And then you may ask, what is that written language? Can I talk about it when I'm talking about spoken language? Actually, nowadays, we don't specify the difference that much. So you can use 中文 for the sentence like, I am learning Chinese or I'm interested in learning Chinese. That Chinese, you can say 中文. And you're going to see for those books, if it's published in Chinese language, they're going to say, like the Chinese version, they're going to say 中文版. That will be Chinese version because technically speaking, it is written Chinese. And then let's move on. So 汉语, what is that? So literal translation, 汉 is here. 汉. And then 语, actually it is spoken language. Technically speaking, it is Han spoken language. What is that? So here, I have to let you know something about China, this country. So in China, we have 56 different ethnic groups. Han is the largest ethnic group in China with over 90% of the population. So what we are talking about is Han language. So this is really specific. When a native Chinese from another ethnic group is learning Chinese language, he or she must say Han language because he is a native Chinese, but is learning the language of Han ethnic group. So that is more specific. And this term is the official and the formal one. It is more technical. So this one actually, the translation for it would be Mandarin Chinese. You are going to see it a lot in your Chinese textbooks or like when you're doing HSK, Chinese proficiency exam, you're going to see this one. Compared to 中文, you wouldn't hear that much in China because we just talk about Chinese language or the language in China. You don't really need to specify Han language. Another point is if you say it with a wrong tone, like the second tone, that will be 韩语. That sounds like Korean language. So I don't recommend you to say it. You can say with 中文, but you're going to see it a lot in your Chinese textbooks or HSK exam. And then this one, 普通话. 普通话. So this is a sign you're going to see in China, like in schools in China, which is please speak Mandarin. So the characters are the same. So what is that in Chinese? That will be 请讲普通话. 普通话. They're the same, right? So what is that? So 普通 by itself is common. 话 is spoken language. So common spoken language. Why do we talk about that in this way? Because it is compared to various dialects in China. China is a huge country. Take a look at the map of the world. You are going to find China is like almost the same size as Europe. How many languages do we have in Europe? See, so we are going to have a lot of different dialects in China. So the well-known ones would be Cantonese or Shanghainese. Actually, we have so many different dialects in China. So how do we make it better for native Chinese to talk to each other? So we have this one, 普通话. Basically, it is spoken Mandarin. So that's the translation for Mandarin in Chinese. You're going to hear a lot between native Chinese. They're going to say 普通话. So do you speak 普通话? That will be, or please speak 普通话. That will be 请讲普通话. But as a foreigner, 中文 is good enough for you to use. Okay, let's move on. What about this one? 国语. 国 here refers to mainland China. 语 is spoken language. When are you going to hear this term? So when you're in Taiwan, Hong Kong, or Macau, you're going to hear 国语. They are parts of China, but they are not in mainland China. So for you, if you are a foreigner, you are not someone from Taiwan, Hong Kong, or Macau, you don't really need to say it. You can just use 中文 or 汉语 or 普通话. But this one doesn't work for you. So right now, let's see. Let me summarize. Chinese or Mandarin, which one is the best one for you to use as a Chinese learner? So number one would be this one. So 中文 is almost the perfect one for you to use. Why? You don't care about that much about the ethnic groups in China. And you are not a native Chinese, like speaking different dialects in China. And you are not someone from Taiwan, Hong Kong, or Macau. So 中文 is the perfect one or the best one for you to use as a Chinese learner if you are a foreigner. And then for this Hànyǔ, you are going to see also is also good for you. You are going to see it a lot in HSK exam or in Chinese textbooks. But you are going to hear the most in China this one, 中文. 普通话 and 国语, you just know it is good, but you don't really need to use that much as a foreigner, as a Chinese learner. So let's move on. So we have done question number one. Let's move on to question number two. Question number two is Chinese difficult to learn? I'm going to compare Chinese language and English language to answer this question. Question number two, is Chinese difficult to learn? Let's start with the point one, pronunciation. As an English speaker, you're going to find the Chinese pronunciation is tricky in its 4 tones because we don't have tones in English language. How can you make the 4 tones easier? I shared my tips and tricks in my previous videos for 4 tones. You can check the video here. And then another thing is confusing pronunciations. Because we don't have that many syllables, you can see it's something good. We only have 409 syllables in Chinese. How many syllables do we have in English? Countless, innumerable, right? But we only have 409 syllables. So if we only have 409 syllables and we have lots of vocabularies sound similar in pronunciations, so you're going to find lots of confusing pronunciations. But is that a really tricky part for you? Actually, it won't be that difficult for you because Chinese language is a contextual language. You are going to tell the meaning from the context. The easy one is we only have 409 syllables, so you can learn Chinese pronunciation faster compared to other European languages because we only have 409 syllables. So how to make it easier for Chinese pronunciation? You need to know my tips and tricks. You can check my playlist here for Chinese pronunciation tips and tricks. Point 2, for vocabulary. So actually, for Chinese vocabulary, you're going to find it's even easier than English because it's logical and it's easy to expand. Let me show you an example. So for this one, 电, 电, which means electricity. Let's see. So we have some vocabularies, we can see the 电 in it. So one is 电脑 and 电话, 电影, 电视. I made the second part in white. You can see the meaning. So 脑 means brain, 话 means words, 影 means shadow, 视 means vision. So we can combine them and understand what it is. So 电 is electricity. So 电脑 will be electricity brain, sort of electrical brain. 电话 will be electrical words or electrical like a conversation. 电影 will be electrical shadow. 电视 will be electrical vision. Can you guess what they mean? Let's see the answer. So computer, electrical brain is computer. Makes sense, right? Logical. And then telephone is electrical words. Also makes sense, like electrical conversation, right? And then 电影 is electrical shadow, which means movie. You say, what is that? Actually, it also makes sense. So movie, what is movie? So remember, for those old-fashioned film movies, so we have a projector. We have those films go through the projector and we can see the movie. It's sort of, we are seeing the moving shadows of those films. So that's why we say movie as electrical shadow in Chinese language. And then TV is easy to understand. We say television, so we just say electrical vision. See, the vocabulary in Chinese language is logical and easy to expand. Once you have known this 电, it's easy for you to learn more from electrical brain, electrical words, electrical shadow, and electrical vision. You know another 4. So point 3 for Chinese grammar. This is good news for you. So in Chinese language, we have no conjugations. Compared to Spanish language or other European languages, you're going to find Chinese language is easy to learn because we don't have conjugations. But the tricky part would be this one, different word order. So you're going to find the word order in Chinese is different from English language. But don't worry. How to make it easier? I'm going to share with you my tips and tricks to make Chinese grammar easier. So let's move on. Point 4, characters. I have to say this is difficult in Chinese language. But don't worry, it's not only difficult for you, it's also difficult for native Chinese. Good news is nowadays, we don't do that much in writing. We can convert the writing into typing. That will be easier. And then another thing, how to make it easier, I'm going to share with you my tips and tricks to make Chinese character learning easier. Remember to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell. I'm going to share with you my tips and tricks for Chinese characters later. So 4 basic language skills, let me analyze it. So for listening, speaking, reading, and writing, Chinese listening is difficult for English speakers because you're going to hear different tones and lots of similar pronunciations. That will be confusing for you. So listening is difficult. And then Chinese speaking, I make it orange because actually Chinese speaking is easier compared to other European languages because we don't have conjugations. So you don't really need to think like other European languages. You just do the verb as it is. So it's easier to speak in Chinese language. And then what about reading and writing? Because it is related to Chinese characters, that would be difficult for English speakers. So see, I have to say Chinese language is difficult for English speakers to learn. But how to make it easier? Remember to subscribe to my channel. I'm going to share with you my tips and tricks. Remember to hit the bell and you're going to receive the notification when I update a new video. You're going to know more about my tips and tricks to learn Chinese easier and faster. Okay, we have done question number 1, question number 2. Right now, let's move on to question number 3. Chinese characters, simplified or traditional? So I'm going to analyze it for you. You can decide by yourself. Okay, Chinese characters, simplified or traditional? So you must know where you are going to find simplified characters or traditional characters. You are going to see simplified characters in mainland China. So we have 1.4 billion people in mainland China. And you're going to find traditional characters basically in Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Macau. Taiwan, roughly we have 23.2 million people. Hong Kong, roughly 7 million. Macau, roughly 0.6 million, added up to 30.8 million people. But mainland China, we have 1.4 billion people. So simplified characters versus traditional characters, that will be 45-1. Which one is better for you to learn? You can think for yourself and decide by yourself. I just analyze it and let you know the figures. You can decide by yourself. Thank you for watching. 再见.